Let's hear today, everybody. Sean Woodland and Tommy Marquez as we are set for the final two events of this fifth sanctioned event of the 2020 CrossFit Games season. Event number 6, Tommy, features a lot of ropes.
Yeah, I think I'm sensing a theme here, Sean. We have 10 rounds for time. We've got 50 double unders with that heavy Zeus rope. And then for the men, you're going to have 2 legless rope climbs a round. For the women, you're going to have alternate rounds of 2 legless rope climbs for the odd rounds, and then 1 legless 15-foot rope climb for the even. So a slight adjustment for the women as far as the total volume of legless rope climbs throughout the workout.
Let's see where we stand now as we start this day of competition on the men's side of things. It's Chandler Smith who is your overall leader, but not by a whole lot. Just 10 points separate him from second place Luke Schaefer. Now Luke Schaefer has a bigger battle on his mind right now. He is fighting with Josh Miller for the invite to the CrossFit Games, and right now Schaefer leads that race by 16 points. Here are the lane assignments for the first of the heats here for event number 6, and it's just 4 athletes here on the floor. Lane number 5, a guy we've seen compete before at the sanctional level is Tyler Christoffel.
Yeah, we saw him at the Mid-Atlantic qualifier last year. He was just on the fringe of qualifying for the games through the Open. This year he earns an invite to the CrossFit Games by finishing in the top 20 worldwide. Maybe hasn't had the competition that he was hoping for, but right now he's looking at this workout as an opportunity to maybe have a good singular performance to kind of turn the weekend around and have something to hang his hat on.
First of 6 heats is underway as we kick off the final day of competition. And we start with 50 double unders with that heavy Zeus rope. We talked about this a little bit at the start of the day, but the fact that the Zeus rope now is just a minor inconvenience, it used to be a big deal.
Yeah, if you remember back in the early days, you know, the double unders were a big deal. You know, it was considered a very medium to high level skill component, you know, and nowadays it's an afterthought, and now we're starting to add weight to the jump rope and trying to make it more difficult, and still no big deal for most of these athletes, although it might add a little bit of spice factor towards the end of this as the shoulders get a little bit tired.
Each athlete will get 1 rep for every 10 double unders, and then each rope climb will count for 1 rep. So 7 reps per round, and there are 10 rounds, 70 total scored repetitions in this event. 14-minute time cap. Hunter Holyfield is the first man done with his first round, and he will return to the rope. Tyler Christoffel is done, and Mitch Spute working his way up, and he is done with his first round. Holyfield back to the rope for round 2.
And I think you're going to see athletes typically move very gingerly towards the Zeus rope each time. You know, obviously you don't want to delay at all, waste time in transitions, but I think you want to make sure that you kind of mitigate some of the damage early on, because as those arms start to fill up with blood a little bit, legless rope climbs are something that once they go away, they're gone, and you're going to have to rest an exponential amount of time before they start to come back.
Two minutes in to this 14-minute event. Hunter Holyfield puts the rope down, and he will go back for round number 2 on his rope climbs. 2 rope climbs to complete here. When he hits 14 reps, will be done with 2 rounds. Again, 70 scored repetitions in this event. Christoffel on the right through his first rope climb in round number 2. Holyfield through his first. Mitch Spute and Pettit behind them. Hunter Holyfield comes into the day in 27th place overall. Had his best finish in event 5 when he tied for 11th. As Tyler Christoffel is done with round 2, and we'll start round at number 3. 50 double unders with the Zeus rope, 1 rep for every 10 that he completes. We talk about interference a lot And this is really an event where that comes into play.
Yeah, this is all upper body here. Obviously, with the legless rope climbs, it's a lot of upper body pulling and a little bit of shoulder stability to make sure whatever your pulling technique is, you can maintain good posture throughout. But here, the double unders, especially with the heavy rope, if you don't have decent technique in terms of relaxed shoulders, good hand placement relative to the body, it's really going to add a little bit of fatigue and really start to fry out those shoulders as you get a little bit into the later rounds. And we might see some athletes hit the red line a little bit, and it'll manifest itself in the legless rope climbs for sure.
Cookeville and Holyfield are back to the ropes. Both of them with their first of 2 reps in round 3 are done. 14-minute time cap. We're 4 minutes in. The first of 6 heats for the men in this event. Just 2 events remain on the day here. Cookeville has completed his 3rd set of rope climbs, and now he will start round 4.
And with these 10-round workouts, these longer round workouts, it's definitely a mental test as well. You can kind of feel like if you're an athlete, you're kind of spinning your wheels a little bit over and over again. We had a similar test in 20.2 when it was that 20-minute AMRAP, and a lot of athletes were in the 20, 25 round range. And that was actually one of Tyler Cookeville's best performances. He was 20th worldwide in that open, so he's pretty comfortable in these high round workouts.
Now, Cookeville and Holyfield are trading the lead, and it's Mitch Spute and Dylan Pettit behind them. These are your 2 leaders, Holyfield on the left, Cookeville on the right. At 28 reps, they will be done with round 4. Cookeville for his 4th round of legless rope climbs. Meanwhile, Mitch Spute was having some trouble getting to the top, and that's why the crowd was trying to will him to get that rep counted. Spute there on the right of your screen with the headband. Holyfield with 1 rep to go.
Look at his arm placement there. I really liked how he kept that nice tight position with the legless rope climbs. You'll see some athletes really start to overextend and reach pretty far. You notice Cookeville is kind of keeping a shorter reach for each regrip. On this one, Holyfield, you can see him overextending a little bit. I think over the course of time, I particularly like Cookeville staying nice and tight and maintaining that good position and not overextending.
Holyfield is through round 4, as is Cookeville. Holyfield is to work on his 5th round of 50 double unders. Mitch Spute, meanwhile, is on the rope. And he will make the touch. And that rep will count for Mitch Spute. So Spute using that kip move that we saw Alessandro Pacelli sort of debut in 2013 in that legless event.
Oh, absolutely. I remember it fondly as one of those moments where everybody's minds were kind of blown. It's like not very often you get to see a new technique introduced into the sport, but when a new movement like the legless rope climb comes up, I remember a lot of athletes sitting around and watching Alessandro do that, like, oh, you can kip these things? Like, oh, that's gonna be the standard going forward.
Hunter Holyfield on the left, Tyler Cookeville on the right. They are both in their 5th of 10 rounds here. At 35 reps, they will be done with round 5. Holyfield right to work on his first of 2 reps here in his 5th of 10 rounds. And that will count for him. Holyfield finished 100th in the Worldwide Open. He's at a Yoon CrossFit, Picayune, Mississippi.
Again, look at Cookeville's turnover. He's a little bit more compact, keeps that nice, what we call like an acute angle for the arms. You're much stronger in that position because your grip point isn't as far away from your center of mass in your body. It's a little bit easier to control.
The Holyfield is back to start round 6. Cookeville has 1 rep left in round 5. 6 minutes to go before we hit the 14-minute time cap. Holyfield now in the lead. He's on the left of your screen. He is in his 5th round of 50 double unders. Make that his 6th round.
I think this is where you're going to start to feel the weight of the Zeus rope here. A lot of times in double unders, especially once you get it going with some of these lighter speed ropes, you just got to make sure you get that initial momentum going, and then it's just kind of perpetual motion. The rope does most of the work for you. You're just kind of moving your hands to make sure you keep the momentum up. With this weighted rope, especially as you get tired towards these backgrounds, you're having to actively pull and whip that rope around and actually impart a little bit of force. And that's just a little extra spice factor, like I mentioned. And it's something that, you know, you're not always used to having to do, at least in your everyday training.
Tyler Christoffel, who has earned a qualifying spot at the CrossFit Games, courtesy of his performance in the Worldwide Open. He also has some games experience on a team with CrossFit 417. Mitch Spute in the headband, who's been struggling with these rope climbs. He's trying to just get as many reps as he can. His Spute right now is only in round 3. Meanwhile, Hunter Holyfield is getting set to close out round 6. Christoffel on the right. He will close out round 6. So he has closed the gap a little bit with Hunter Holyfield as the two of them return to the jump rope to start round 7.
And I think at this point, it's basically become an AMRAP for this workout. With the 14-minute cap, you know, they weren't past the halfway point at the 7-minute mark. And this is a type of workout where you're not necessarily going to speed up towards the end because of the fatigue on legless rope climbs.
Mitch Spute, meanwhile, back on the rope, and just his grip fails him before he gets to that white tape mark. So Mitch Spute struggling with this movement. Spute 28th overall coming into the event. His best finish was 15th. That was in event number 3 to start Saturday morning. Tyler Christoffel, meanwhile, is done with his double unders here in round number 7. He's on the far side of the floor. Hunter Holyfield has 1 rep to go before he closes out round 7.
And a little bit of cat and mouse game there. Christoffel got done with the double unders before Holyfield. Turned around, watching, was waiting to see when Holyfield would finish his double unders. Holyfield to kind of answer right back. Finish, immediately ran up and jumped up for that first rep to kind of put the pressure back on Christoffel.
Christoffel is now through 7 rounds of 10, as is Hunter Holyfield. The two of them on opposite ends of the floor, but definitely keeping an eye on one another. Mitch Spute works his way to the top, and Spute is through 4 rounds. Dylan Pettit, meanwhile, he is in his 5th round. He just made the touch on the rope climb. And he will begin round 6 after 1 more rope climb.
And you can start to see Holyfield's jump. His jump height gets a little bit higher. That's a sign of fatigue there, right? Normally we're used to, with the speed of the rope that we get going, you don't have to jump as high. You can really tell they're having to put some work into that rope by increasing their jump height, because that means the rope is moving slower than usual. They need a little extra leeway for that rope to get through.
Now Holyfield's starting to miss a couple reps here and there, as Christoffel has taken the lead. Christoffel on the right, chalking up his hands, and he took a look to see where Holyfield was. With these 2 rope climbs, Christoffel will close out round 8, and we're approaching a minute left to go in this event. 1 is down for Christoffel.
And Holyfield had to break a few times there.
And Christoffel is now through 8 rounds. 40 seconds now to go before we hit the time cap. Holyfield trying to catch up, so Christoffel looks like he's going to set the early mark to beat, as now he's just churning away on the double unders. 30 seconds before we hit the time cap. Christoffel took a look over to his right to see where Holyfield was, so Christoffel is going to win this heat. He is in round number 9. 10 seconds to go before we hit the time cap. So Christoffel looks like he got through his 9th round of double unders. So he was 10 scored reps shy, according to the scoreboard, of finishing the event. So he will have the early mark to beat, 10 reps shy for Tyler Christoffel.
And like I mentioned before, you know, he's really just looking for a strong performance that he can kind of, I guess, use to kind of rally a little bit here for a competition that hasn't gone so well for him. But consistent technique on the double unders throughout. He was strong on the legless rope climbs, kept a nice tight body position as far as where his hands were relative to the rope. And over time, that started to buy him a little leeway as we saw Holyfield start to falter a little bit. Started to struggle with the rope a little bit, and it's a nice finish for Christoffel, who's, you know, he's in the first heat, obviously, so the best you can do is win your heat knowing that some big athletes are coming later.
Here are your official results. Tyler Christoffel with 60 reps, so 10 reps shy of finishing that event. Hunter Holyfield, who was fighting with Christoffel for the lead for most of that event, 4 reps back, and then Dylan Pettit, followed by Mitch Spute. Rory McKernan is back down on the competition floor. Well, next to the competition floor. He is at the Reebok tent. Let's send it down to him.
Hey, that's right, Sean. And look who I got. I got our friend Kiki Dixon here. Hey, first of all, I mean, how much fun are you having at the Classic?
Oh, it's a blast. I love being here. It's an honor. I mean, all the good times all around.
Yeah, you've been here a number of times. But we dressed this place up. We're having a blast. One of the reasons we could do that is because Reebok came in such a huge way. They're excited about releasing this shoe, the Nano 9 with the Vector logo and the Fade Pack. And people at home can get a little bit of a screaming deal too, right?
That's right. The Bach is brought at 100%. Follow the link on the bottom of your screen. Use the code Mayhem. You can get this shoe, and for $9.99, you can get a sweet tee as well.
Boom, you get that Vector shirt along with it for use that code.
Thank you, Rowan Kiki. Second of 6 heats here in event 6. 5 athletes out on the floor. In lane number 2, Sam Cornier.
Yeah, he's kind of had an up and down weekend. You know, he started the day strong yesterday with an event win in that dumbbell squat, snatch, and handstand walk workout, but then he has a 26th and 28th place finish, so looking to maybe bounce back and have another strong start to day number 2 for an athlete that's going to be going back to the games for a 2nd year in a row after qualifying through the Open. You know, getting this competition experience on the floor against some live competition is huge.
Cornier, one of the athletes under the tutelage of Michelle Latondra. She has put together quite a stable of athletes up there. And Cornier will be competing at the CrossFit Games this year. Second heat is underway. Tyler Christoffel has the mark to beat of 60 scored repetitions. He was 10 reps shy of finishing this event. Let's take a look at what this event entails for the men. 10 rounds of 50 double unders with that heavy Zeus rope, and then 2 legless rope climbs. They will get 1 rep for every 10 double unders they complete, and each rope climb will count for 1 as well. So 70 total reps, 7 reps per round. Austin Bolin, Marquand Jones, and Nick Matthew, Colton Mertens basically all done at the same time. Sam Cornier was right behind them, and now they will all get to work on their first of 2 rope climbs. Jones and Cornier making the touch first. Nick Matthew far into the floor. He completes his first rep. Cornier's through his first 2, and he will work his way back to the rope. So a little more than a minute for that first round for Sam Cornier. It's like Nick Matthew got hit with a no rep, so make that Colton Mertens got hit with a no rep. So he is still on the floor for round 1.
And I know it's round 1, but even then, a no rep there is tough. I mean, with the volume of these legless rope climbs, you don't want to do any more than you have to. A lot of these athletes are riding the line of just how many they can get in that time frame. Like the second rope climb, you know, I'm pushing the red line a little bit, and then obviously going to get a little bit of a break on the double unders.
Sam Cornier in the middle of your screen was the first man done with his first round, and now he is under round 2, done with his second round of double unders, and he will return to the rope. Nick Matthew and Marquand Jones also walking back to the rope as well to start their second round of legless rope climbs.
Little bit of a grip slip there for Cornier, but nice job recovering to make sure that the rep wasn't lost.
So Matthew, who had a really solid open performance, finished 59th overall in the world, wasn't good enough for a qualifying spot. Out of Timberwolf CrossFit in Ramsey, Minnesota. He's done with 2 rounds, and now Sam Cornier, who was a leader after the first round, has fallen behind Matthew and Jones. Colton Mertens, meanwhile, is on round 2 of his double unders.
And I think early on we might see this lead get passed back and forth a little bit as athletes try to feel out what's a proper pace for them on both the rope and the legless rope climbs, as well as trying to manage fatigue and see where they're at throughout this workout. Because, I mean, even though it's been a shortened weekend, they did a lot of work yesterday.
The score to beat belongs to Tyler Christoffel. He completed 60 of the 70 scored repetitions. He got through all of his double unders, almost all of his double unders, in round 9. Now, Nick Matthew is done with his third round of double unders. He's working his way back to the rope for the third time. And here comes Marquand Jones.
See what Nick Matthew did there, kind of lowering himself down. I'm surprised not to see him and maybe some more people use their feet. I mean, that's just added stress. You're effectively doing the negative portion of that pull, which, if you're familiar with, you know, training and working the negative portion, that's what's most fatiguing. And also that's what's going to make you sore tomorrow, or at least bang you up a little bit for the later event.
Matthew is done with his third round. Now Marquand Jones is done as well. And Sam Cornier is 1 rep shy now of finishing round number 3. But these are your 2 leaders, Marquand Jones on the left, Nick Matthew is on the right. Of course, Marquand Jones will be in front of a television tomorrow as he watches his alma mater, the Clemson Tigers, vie for a national championship against LSU. Jones had a good career at Clemson. He was there from 2008 to 2011. He played 47 games, had 36 receptions, 403 yards, and a touchdown. And he also had a brief stint in the Canadian Football League with the Montreal Alouettes.
Ooh, my favorite team in the Canadian Football League.
Nick Matthew just ahead of Jones here in round 4 of 10. And we're past the 5-minute mark. 14-minute time cap here. Again, Tyler Christoffel has the score to beat at 60 completed reps. There are 70 scored reps in this event. Nick Matthew leading this event. His best finish so far was 13th in event number 3. And he is back to begin round number 5. As is Marquand Jones.
So far, you can see both of them pretty comfortable with that Zeus rope. Good technique, hands about level, shoulders nice and relaxed, good posture, standing up straight. They're not really doing any of those kind of funky jumps that you see where the feet will kind of curl back or they'll flip out in front. call that the fish.
Sam Cornier, who led after the first round, really had a fast pace out of the gate. He is fallen off the lead pace. One more rope climb, and he will be through 4 rounds.
And look
Cornier
at
in a distant third here.
Watch the top here. You can kind of see when you have to start to give that one last heave at the top. So usually you'll see athletes kind of let their arms go to extension, and that's when the kip comes in for one last heave to try to get to that tape line.
Nick Matthew, meanwhile, is 1 rep short of getting through 5 rounds. Marquand Jones is right behind him. Jones, you just saw him making his first of 2 ascents here in round 5. Matthew is done with 5 rounds. He's halfway through. And we are halfway to the 14-minute time cap. So if Matthew can keep this pace, looks like he'll finish the event.
And like I said, you can look at their technique right there, nice and relaxed through the shoulders, hands at a nice, good height. You can see Marquand at a slightly faster clip, a little bit quicker turnover rate, where Matthew's jumping a little bit higher, floating a little bit more. That means the rope's moving a little bit slower.
Jones taking a break. Nick Matthew goes unbroken on those double unders. Matthew back to the rope for the 6th time now. So this has turned into basically a 2-man race in the second of 6 heats between Marquand Jones and Nick Matthew, as Sam Cornier is in a distant third, and then Mertens and Bolin are way back. Matthews with 1 rope climb to go before he is through 6 rounds. Jones completes his first.
We're seeing a little back and forth here. I think Matthew has been a little bit more steady on the rope, going unbroken most of the way, but Marquand has actually started to make up ground each time they get back to the legless rope climb.
Now the two of them about even, as Nick Matthew finished his second rope climb in round 6, just ahead of Jones. Matthew to his 7th round of double unders first.
You can see from this side profile how nice and vertical each of them are in their jumps. Usually when you start to see athletes get a little bit tired, they start to hinge at the hip a little bit more. You can see their legs curl back or kick forward, start to break that posture. But right now, so far so good. Good technique on the double unders.
Jones takes a break. Matthew continues to work. He's been virtually unbroken on every round of double under so far. And he is through his 7th round.
And I think he's staying unbroken to buy himself a little bit of rest time on the back end heading to these rope climbs, because he knows Marquand's a little bit faster on the legless rope climb turnover between rep 1 and rep 2.
Matthew's first rope climb here in round number 7. Marquand Jones has 2 rope climbs left here in round 7. This is his first. Second rope climb for Matthew. And he is now through 7 of his 10 rounds. And Marquand Jones is through 7 of 10 rounds. So if Jones can go a little faster on this rope, he's got a real good chance of catching Matthew here in these later rounds.
Yeah, and if I had to pick a movement to be a little bit more proficient at in this couplet, obviously it would be the legless rope climbs. I think, you know, Marquand has maybe taken some strategic breaks in some of these middle rounds here to kind of maybe save a little bit of lungs and a little bit of gas tank. And seeing his proficiency on the legless rope climb, being able to kind of turn it on for one last round at the end, having the better half for you be the legless rope climbs, I think is a little bit easier to kind of dial one up for a sprint to the finish.
Matthew is done with his 8th round of double unders. Marquand Jones took a break, and now he's back to work. So Matthew has been deciding to take his break on the transition, and you can see him peeking up and looking at Marquand Jones. And Matthew gets to work now on his first of 2 rope climbs here in round number 8.
As we saw in round 6, they were basically dead even coming off the legless rope climbs. That last round, Matthew a little bit faster to rep number 2 than Marquand was.
First rope climb of round 8 is down for Marquand Jones.
You can see Matthew basically timing his second rope climb for when Marquand gets done, kind of using that as a buffer.
Matthew is done, and he will move on to round number 9. The time to beat, the score to beat, is Tyler Christoffel, who completed 60 of the scored repetitions. They get 1 rep for every 10 double unders they complete. If Matthew gets through all of his double unders in this round, he'll be the new leader.
I'd like to see Marquand maybe take a chance here, right? You know, he's not necessarily in a position to try and earn one of those invites, but, you know, there's still a learning experience to be had here. He's taken a break each of the last 5 rounds on the double unders. I would love to see him, and obviously he just took a break right there, to maybe try and push through and see if he can still hold on for the same pace on the legless rope climbs that he has in the last couple rounds.
70 total scored repetitions in this event, 7 reps per round. And Nick Matthew is now your new leader, as he is through 61 of those 70 scored reps. Tyler Christoffel got through 60 in heat number 1. This is the second of 6 heats in the first of 2 events on the final day of competition here at the Mayhem Classic. Matthew, his first rope climb here in round number 9.
And he actually rested a little bit longer there. In the last couple rounds, he had a rope climb done before Marquand even jumped up. So even with the break, Marquand's closed the gap just a little bit.
1 rope climb remains for Matthew and Marquand Jones here in round 9. And Jones has now taken the lead as Matthew wasn't able to get to the top. So Marquand Jones, with 40 seconds before we hit the time cap, looking to set the new score to beat. So those rests paying off for Marquand Jones late here in the event.
That is disastrous for Nick Matthew. I mean, to get so far into this workout and then essentially what is the final little sprint to the finish, you start to hit fatigue and that maximum, like kind of that maximal failure there on the legless rope climb.
Matthew will get that attempt. Now he will return to the rope, but Marquand Jones is going to be your event leader as he is through 67 of the 70 scored repetitions. We apologize for the technical difficulties, but we are back up and running here at the Mayhem Classic. This is the 3rd of 6 heats for event 6. Spencer Panchik is in the lead right now in this heat. He is through 4 of his 10 rounds as we are 5.5 minutes in to this 14-minute heat. The athletes will get 1 rep for every 10 double unders they complete, and they will get 1 rep for every rope climb. There are 7 reps per round on the throwdown scoring ribbon. 70 total repetitions in this event. The score to beat belongs to Marquand Jones, unofficially at 67. So no athlete has completed all the work, all 10 rounds, inside of the 14-minute time cap.
We've got a nice little battle going on between Spencer Panchik and Tolo Morquinho in the outside lane there. Interesting to note, both using different techniques, too, for that legless rope climb.
Morquinho is now on to his 5th round of rope climbs, just ahead of Spencer Panchik. Morquinho, the athlete who is in line to receive the invite from the Dubai CrossFit Championship.
Yeah, you see Tola using just kind of a little bit of a hip hop to give him some momentum for each one, taking up huge chunks of real estate on the rope. And Panchik on the left, what he does is basically does one big kip, does a couple grips for each kip to kind of move up the rope a little bit, and then one final big kip to get him up to the top. It's kind of a hybrid technique. Does a couple traditional pulls, one big kip. Is actually kind of, you can see the fatigue now, because now he's just transitioned to the traditional kipping method.
Spencer Panchik is now through 5 rounds. Tola Moraquino is now in the lead. He's on the right of the screen. He is in his 6th round of double unders as Spencer Panchik picks up his rope. He gets set to start round number 6. Scott Tetlow is in the middle of your screen. Tetlow just completed round 4. But these are your 2 leaders, Spencer Panchik on the left and Tola Moraquino on the right. Past the halfway point of this event, 14-minute time cap, and no one has been able to complete it inside of that allotted time.
And they finished that 5th round just past the 7-minute mark, which is right around on pace to finish at the 14-minute cap. We've seen, obviously, athletes slow in the later rounds, so they're going to really have to hustle if they want to make it under the cap.
So 2 rope climbs remain for Tola Moraquino, and he will be through 6 rounds of this event. Again, 7 scored reps per round, 70 total in the event. Spencer Panchik getting set to close out his 6th round of 50 double unders. Moraquino on the right on his final rope climb in round 6, and he is now on to round 7. So Tola Moraquino in the lead as he has overtaken Spencer Panchik.
And I wouldn't be surprised to see him lap him pretty soon. Tola looks much better on the rope. Usually what you'll see, especially with some of these top athletes, they'll only use the kip as kind of a fail-safe once they're tired. Tola's continuing to use I guess a more typical pull of just minor hip pops and continuing that fast turnover rate with your hands.
And impressive for a guy of his size. Moraquino, one of the bigger athletes in the field, 6 feet, 207 pounds.
And I think that's what makes him such an exciting athlete. And that if you talk to any of the athletes around the kind of this community, he's one of the guys that comes up in the conversations about an up-and-comer and someone to watch who's making the transition from the team to the individual competition. We talked yesterday how he holds the record for the heaviest snatch ever lifted in CrossFit competition. I believe he's tied with Jake Douglas down in Australia for the heaviest clean and jerk ever in competition. Nearly broke it at the Dubai CrossFit Championships a couple weeks ago. And he's got all the requisite skills, right? He's tremendously skilled in gymnastics, as we're seeing with some of this here. He's incredibly strong, and now it's just about building that engine and building that kind of metabolic base to be able to become a full threat as an individual at the CrossFit Games. That just comes with time.
Moraquino through his first of 2 rope climbs here in round 7.
I actually spoke with Tola earlier this morning about how he's feeling and how the competition's going so far. He said, well, I really need to work on my running and my rucking, apparently, after he took dead last in both of those workouts on day 1.
Yeah, Moraquino did not start the competition off very well, like you said. 2 30th place finishes. But since then, he had a 2nd place in event 3, 21st in event 4, and he was tied for 7th in event 5. So Spencer Panchik has fallen way behind Tola Moraquino, as Spencer Panchik is on his 2 rope climbs here to close out round 7. Moraquino is on the rope for the 8th time.
And Panchik closed day 2 on a high. He had his best finish of the competition, a 2nd place finish to end day number 2 in event 5. By far his best finish of the competition.
Moraquino continuing to rack up double under reps, 1 rep for every 10 repetitions on the scoreboard. So Moraquino now with 2 rope climbs to go in round number 8. 3 minutes to go before we hit the time cap. Score to beat 67 by Marquand Jones. That was in the prior heat. This is the 3rd of 6 heats that we're going to see here for the men in event number 6. We're going to have 5 heats of men, then we're going to hand things over to the women, and then the final heats for the women and the men will be back to back.
you talk about some of the kind of carryover between some of the movements as far as gymnastics, barbell movements, we talk about Tola, how powerful he is. I think you get a little bit of a hint of it if you look a little bit closer, just to show you how much power he generates with his hips. All it takes is a little bit of a hip pop in each one of these legless rope climbs, and it's enough momentum for him to kind of keep his pace up. It's a little bit of that quarter extremity carryover that we see and we talk about in the level ones.
2 minutes to go before we hit the time cap, and Tola Moraquinho is on round number 9. He's on the right of your screen. Spencer Panchik on the left. The two of them were fighting for the lead early on here, but then at about round 5 is where Moraquinho started to separate himself from Panchik, and he has not looked back since then. 67 scored reps is the score to beat as we're approaching 90 seconds to go in this event.
I think you can see a little bit of the fatigue factor there on the grip. You saw Tola when he tripped up on the double unders, he let go of the handles and just got them out of his hands for a little bit.
That is not a normal jump rope. It is that Zeus rope that is a little bit heavier.
Yeah, depending on the length, the 9-foot rope cable is about 1.5 pounds. The 10-foot rope cable, which most of these guys are probably using, is about 1.75 pounds, and at about 0.5 pound for the handles as well. So definitely a lot heavier than some of these speed ropes you see that are basically hollow aluminum and a razor thin wire.
Moraquinho is now through 9 rounds. 45 seconds to go before we hit the time cap. 67 scored repetitions is the score to beat. And there will be a tiebreak in there because remember, it's 1 rep for every 10.
And if he can manage to hold on and not break here, he has enough time to finish. Usually you can get about 2, at a fast clip, you can get about 2 double unders a second. For 50 reps, you need about 25 seconds to go, but
Moraquinho now through 66 scored repetitions. 10 more, he'll be at 67. 15 seconds to go before we hit the time cap. Tola Moraquinho with 2 rope climbs to go, but he will have the new score to beat at 68, so he is 2 rope climbs shy of finishing. So a new score to beat for Tola Moraquinho as he gets 68 of the 70 scored repetitions in the event.
Strong performance from Tola so far. Closed yesterday with a 7th place finish in event 5. He had a 2nd place finish, and this should be another top 10 quality finish for a guy that's really starting to find his feet as an individual.
And he's already going to get that invite from the Dubai CrossFit Championship, but you got to wonder if he just finished middle of the pack on those first 2 events. Maybe he's in the top 5 right now. But 68 scored repetitions for Tola Moraquinho. Spencer Panchik finishes in 2nd place as the 2 of them battle for the lead for most of that event. And it's Dylan Martin in 3rd. But Spencer Panchik looked good early, but then slowed significantly on those rope climbs.
Yeah, and you can see early on the kind of fatigue factor for his grip and his upper body pulling. He went from, you know, a more traditional kind of bicycling your legs, short kips, kind of short chunks on the rope to letting his arms fall to full extension, having to utilize that full kip swing, which is usually just kind of more of a fail-safe that athletes use in the final few feet to make sure that they get to the tape line. And, you know, ultimately he fell back a little bit and wasn't able to keep pace with Tola.
No one has yet to finish event 6, powered by Reebok. 10 rounds of the 50 double unders with that Zeus rope and the 2 legless rope climbs at 15 feet. But Tola Moraquinho came the closest. We just saw that. 68 of the 70 scored repetitions. He was 2 rope climbs shy of getting through all the work. Lane assignments for the 4th of 6 heats. And Cole Grayshaber, the youngster in lane number 4, has looked very impressive so far. He's kind of been up and down the leaderboard as far as the results go, but he has 2 top 10 finishes.
Yeah, you know, he had a 17th and a 15th to open up the day, which kind of put him in a little bit of, or open up the weekend, that put him in a little bit of a hole overall. But then his first 2 events yesterday, an 8th and a 9th, 2 really strong finishes for, and I use this term loosely, a kid who's really only a couple years separated from the teenage competition. So I think the fact that he's hanging around, I mentioned the depth of the field in our pre-show. You know, we've got 10, 11 CrossFit Games athletes and a handful of more that are already qualified. So he's hanging tough.
The other Panchik brother is also in this heat, Saxon Panchik. He comes in 12th place overall.
Yeah, you mentioned kind of how Tola got off to a rough start, and that day one is really what was holding him back. It's a similar story here with Saxon. A 20th and a 27th place finish to start the day, and then yesterday 2 top 5 finishes in 11th, so he's really started to rebound strong in day 2.
Stand by.
Heat 4 underway. 2 heats remain after this. Again, the final men's heat will be after all of the women's heat. So we have 1 heat to go for men after this before we hand things over to the women. The score to beat, 68 of the 70 scored repetitions. 10 rounds of 50 double unders with the Zeus rope and 2 legless rope climbs. They will receive 1 scored rep for every 10 double unders they complete, and each rope climb counts for 2. 7 reps per round for a total of 70. Saxon Panchik is done first with his 50 double unders. Austin Spencer behind him. He's at the far end of the floor. Panchik to the rope first. Here comes Austin Spencer. And now Matt Hewitt and Cole Grayshaber along with Brendan Willis. And Brendan Willis on the far left of your screen had a great day 1. As he was the overall leader after that first event.
Yeah, and things kind of went south after that. He had kind of a what we call a first to worst situation. You know, won the second event overall, first place finish, and then finishes dead last, a 30th, and the next one to back it up with the heavy dumbbell.
The Saxon Panchik is on his second round. He and Austin Spencer on the far end of the floor. Spencer wearing that headband on the top part of your screen in the black shorts. 2 early leaders here. 14-minute time cap in this event, and Saxon Panchik is now done with his second round of double unders.
And with a 14-minute cap and 10 rounds total, the kind of average pace that you're looking for these athletes in order to get underneath the cap, 1:24 per round gets you at 14 minutes on the dot. A lot of times we saw in this first round, a lot of athletes are coming in at 1 minute to 1:10. So obviously that's going to slow towards the end, but hovering around that 1:20 on average is going to get you there.
We mentioned Cole Grayshaber to start here. He is just begun round number 2 and breaking up the double unders already. This kid is only 20 years old. He finished 37th in the World Wide Open, but clearly this kid has a future.
Yeah, and this is all just competition experience for him. You know, anytime you're talking about an athlete that's trying to break through on the individual level at such a young age, you really have to take the long-term goals in mind. To quote our friend Rory McKernan, you know, it's a low trajectory at a distant horizon. You kind of pick a couple of things to work on here and there and work slowly over time, because really, realistically speaking, he's competing against guys that are 30, 32, that are a decade older than him, so a lot of time to make improvement.
The Saxon Panchik, meanwhile, has just completed his 3rd round of 50 double unders, and now back to the rope for 2 more legless rope climbs.
I do.
The score to beat is 68, and that was done by Tolo Moraquinho in the prior heat. Austin Spencer on the lead pace, along with Saxon Panchik and Matt Hewitt out of CrossFit MF in Portland, Maine, finished 111th in the World Wide Open.
And Spencer's a guy that's really trying to find his way in this new sanctionals format. You remember back in 2017 at the East Regional, he missed out by 1 spot in going to the games. We had that kind of epic finish between him and Michael Palumba. He finished just 5 points shy of him and really kind of was in that race down to the last wire. He finished 1 spot ahead of Palumba. Wasn't quite enough in that last workout to give him a spot. One of those kind of heartbreaking turn of events, and hasn't quite been able to find his way in terms of getting to that same level again.
Well, right now he sits in 3rd place in this heat behind Saxon Panchik, who just wrapped up round 4 of his double unders as we're past the 4.5 minute mark. 14 minutes to go here, and through 3 heats so far, no one has been able to finish all the work inside the 14-minute time cap. Saxon Panchik, his first of 2 rope climbs here in round number 4.
And so far, he's ahead of that 124 per round pace. Looking pretty solid. At this point in time, we saw his brother Spencer start to transition to utilizing the kip swing a little bit more. But so far, we're just kind of seeing that more traditional kind of legless rope climb pull, hand over hand, bicycling the legs just a little bit.
Panchik back now to start round number 5. And he is all by himself now, as Matt Hewitt and Austin Spencer are fighting for second. Brendan Willis and Cole Grayshaber are 4th and 5th respectively. You want to talk about a whole lot of fitness. The Panchik family, there are a couple families you think about when you think about CrossFit. The Smiths are certainly one of them, but the Panchiks, as far as what their 3 brothers have been able to accomplish so far, is pretty impressive.
Yeah, and it kind of falls in line with what we saw, the kind of precedent set almost by the Anderson family a little while back, where they've qualified 3 brothers to the CrossFit Games. I think it's only a matter of time before Spencer gets over the hump and makes it to the Games, and they join that kind of upper echelon of company. Last year, Saxon, I mean, had a fantastic breakout year, finishing in the top 10 overall at the Games. Both him and his brother Scott getting to kind of share that moment of being some of the elite few to finish out the competition.
Cole Grayshaber, meanwhile, is still in round number 3 and just failed a rope climb.
And this is where, especially under fatigue, that his size isn't going to help him. At, over 6 feet, 200+ pounds. For some of those big guys, once the legless rope climbs go, man, it's going to be a while before they come back.
And the crowd is trying to get him to the top of that rope, but Grayshaber just having some problems here. But again, just 20 years old for this youngster, and has had some pretty good performances here at the Mayhem Classic over the weekend. Saxon Panchik on the left of your screen continues to lead as he is in round number 6. 2 rope climbs to close out that round for him, as Cole Grayshaber just has 1 rep to go to close out round 3.
This is one of those moments where the crowd kind of helps a little bit. I mean, obviously he's in a tough spot here, but in these types of moments, the crowd starts to really rally behind an athlete, and sometimes they can kind of give him just a little bit of that boost to get the final few grips. But it's tough to see Cole, a young athlete, struggling like this, but it's certainly a learning opportunity.
Saxon Panchik is your leader. He is now through 6 of the 10 rounds. The score to beat, we have a tie as our score has been updated. Tolomora Aquino and Marquand Jones both had 68 of the 70 scored repetitions. Cole Grayshaber's trying to get to the top meanwhile, and just will be able to make it. So he is now through 3 rounds. He's walking back to his rope on the right center of your screen. Spencer Panchik is now on the far left of your screen. He just exited the view. He is your leader. Grayshaber back for his double unders. Saxon Panchik is now in round number 7. 14-minute time cap.
He's still holding on to that pace that's going to get him in under the time cap so far.
So first rope climb in round 7 down for Saxon Panchik. 7 scored repetitions per round. At 49, he will be done with round 7.
And he's spot on that pace. It's, maybe if he has a little bit in the tank towards the end of sprint, he could just barely get underneath the cap.
Saxon Panchik back to the rope for round number 8. 1 scored rep for every 10 double unders he completes. Far end of the floor in the headband is Austin Spencer. He and Matt Hewitt, who's in the black shirt now on the left, are fighting for second place in this heat. Score to beat again belongs to Tolomor Aquino and Marquand Jones. Both got through 68 of the 70 scored repetitions. Less than 4 minutes to go before we hit the time cap. Saxon Panchik continues to lead. He is in round number 8. And has 2 rope climbs remaining. No problem for Saxon Panchik, and his pace still looks the same when he hits that rope.
Let's go,
Matt Hewitt, meanwhile, is ahead of Austin Spencer for second place as Hewitt is through 7 rounds. Hewitt on the bottom right of your screen just picked up his jump rope to start round number 8. Saxon Panchik, he is through 8 rounds and now on to round number 9. About 3 minutes to go before we run into the 14-minute time cap. Once Panchik hits 61 reps, he will be done with his 50 double unders, and he will take a break. Panchik now done with his 9th round and will return to the rope for the 9th time. Trying to track down Tolomor Aquino and Marquand Jones' score of 68. No man has been able to complete this event inside the 14-minute time cap as of yet, but Saxon Panchik may be the first. He has 2 minutes to go before he hits that 14-minute cap.
And he still looks solid on his legless rope climb so far. At least as far as pacing goes. If he finishes before that, what, 12:35, he's still on pace underneath that 124 round.
Into the 10th and final round for Saxon Panchik. 1 scored rep for every 10 double unders. 68 is the top score that we have seen. So Saxon Panchik looking to become the first man to finish this event inside the 14 minutes. Minute 15 to go.
He's got plenty of time to finish underneath the cap right now, given how his legless rope climbs looked in that previous round.
He has 10 double unders remaining. The Panchik is done. He has less than a minute, 50 seconds to get 2 rope climbs to finish the event. First one counts. Remember, he's got to sprint and press that buzzer to officially end his time. Less than 30 to go for Saxon Panchik. Here's rope climb number 2, the final rope climb in the event. Panchik will make it, and Saxon Panchik will finish event 6. 13:43.59 seconds for Saxon Panchik as he is the first man to complete this event inside the 14-minute time cap.
Excellent pacing by Panchik throughout. Remained relatively steady, and it's nice to see him kind of bounce back a little bit with another strong finish after a tough start to the weekend.
So pacing and knowing when to break were big for Saxon Panchik as when he got on the rope, the climb that is, looked basically the same every time.
Yeah, that's really where he really started to separate himself. He basically had the same technique the entire time, didn't have to utilize a heavier kip swing, looked pretty solid throughout with the double unders, taking a couple of strategic breaks in some of the later rounds, bought him enough time to, you know, finish this workout. Not just that, be the first one to finish underneath the time cap in impressive fashion.
13:43.59. That is now the top mark to beat. Matt Hewitt gets through 64 of the 70 scored repetitions, and it's Austin Spencer who will take third. So just one man has now completed this event. His name is Saxon Panchik, and he is with Rory McKernan.
Saxon, you were the first to crack the code. What did you figure out that helped you get through this event?
The biggest thing was, one, having volume through rope climbs. You can't hide from 20 legless rope climbs. And then on top of that, he gave us 500 heavy double unders. So a lot of it was just staying relaxed.
Cool. Did you get any advice from your brother who went before you?
Yeah, stay smooth.
Right on. Congratulations, ladies and gentlemen.
Saxon Panchik will have 2 heats to watch to see if he can pick up his first event win of the competition. 13:43.59 seconds. Event 6 powered by Reebok. The men with 10 rounds of those 50 double unders with the Zeus rope, and then 2 legless rope climbs at 15 feet.
So far, only one person's finished, but I have a guess that a couple of these guys might be able to get underneath the cap.
The 2015 fittest man on earth is in this heat. Ben Smith will be working out of lane 4.
And Ben is typically a ninja when it comes to legless rope climbs, even when he's not at full superhero strength. You remember last year at the games when he got one of those last-minute invites. He came out swinging from the earlier heat, won that heat, had a top 10 finish in the workout. And I would suffice to say that would have been even better had he been pushed and had the benefit of having the top guys in the later heats kind of to give him a little bit of a litmus test to push his pacing.
And next to Smith is the Big Red Express, Drew Wayman. He's a guy who is trying to earn an invite to the CrossFit Games after he failed to qualify through the Open when he finished 51st worldwide.
Yeah, another athlete that I think is going to do extremely well here. He's shown some proficiency on legless rope climbs. One of his best finishes at Wadapalooza last year was in double vision, which featured some of these legless rope climbs, and was one of the events that kind of catapulted him up the leaderboard.
Heat 5 of 6 in event 6 is underway. This will be the final heat of men before we hand things off to the women, and then the final heats for women and men will be back-to-back. 13:43.59 seconds. Saxon Panchik, the only man to finish this event inside the 14-minute time cap.
And like we said, the kind of minutes per round kind of average pacing you're looking for is at about 1:24. This first round should be a little bit quicker, but as long as they're kind of sitting around that 80 seconds per round, they should be solid.
Well, Ben Smith will be the first man done with his first set of 50 double unders, and he gets right to the rope and right to work. So Ben Smith looked really good on that first rope climb. Smith is through round 1 and now back to the rope to begin round number 2. 7 scored reps in each round. 1 rep for every 10 double unders completed and 1 rep for every rope climb. And Ben Smith's father is back there in the black CrossFit Krypton shirt cheering on his son.
We got a chance to kind of catch up with Mr. Smith a
Great
little
guy
bit
to talk
earlier.
to.
Awesome dude. Always nice to see him. He always, shows up for his kids. Always out here watching, supporting them. Pretty fit dude himself.
There's a lot of fitness in that family,
oh,
too.
Yeah. I remember in Masters qualifier a few years back, him pulling like 550,
all the
maybe
weights.
600 pounds on the deadlift.
We can't lift any weights because Ben Smith's dad is lifting them all. So Smith is now done. Ben Smith, that is now done with his second round of double unders. Ben Smith will be making the trip back to the CrossFit Games this year for his 12th straight appearance, and he's not even 30 years old yet.
Yep. And Ben's been pretty consistent so far. Nothing tremendous to kind of write home about, but everything within that 7 to kind of 12, 13 range. He's got a 10th, a 13th, 11th, 7th, and 11th. So in the very least, he's consistent at that same kind of level. Nothing too bad, nothing tremendous, but enough to keep him in the top 10.
Jeffrey Adler is in lane 2, and that might not be a familiar name to people, and you might be surprised to figure out that he finished 5th in the World Wide Open.
Yeah, I mean, he had his career best finish in the Open this year. He was in the top 3 for most of the competition. He had an event win in 20.4. I've said before on this broadcast, in my opinion, one of the most impressive singular open performances on a workout that I've seen. But he's going back to the games for his second trip, and this one looks pretty well from him. You go back to the first cut, which had a ton of legless rope climbs as well. Jeffrey Adler finished 5th. So that was one of the better workouts for him that kind of catapulted him at least into the top 40 to remain in the competition a little bit longer.
Ben Smith is now through 3 rounds he will be through 3 rounds after one more rope climb.
You've seen him kind of bicycle the legs a little bit. It's almost kind of like a half kip, right? A kip for just the side and the arm that you're trying to move up the rope.
Ben Smith back to the rope as he begins round number 4. So he is your early leader here in this 5th of 6 heats for the men. Again, we're going to turn things over to the women after this, and then the final heats for the men and women will go back to back. Drew Wayman, we mentioned, is looking for that invite to the CrossFit Games. Mathematically, he's still alive. He is in 6th place overall with 325 points, but he is 63 points back of Luke Schaefer. So Wayman's going to have a really strong performance in this event and hope that Luke Schaefer trips up, and that he gets some help, does Wayman, in the process.
Yeah, we've seen some athletes struggle with these legless rope climbs as far as the cap is concerned, and so it's not out of the ordinary. I misspoke earlier when I said Double Vision was the event at Wadapalooza he did really well at. It was actually called Special Delivery, and it featured a ton of rope climbs. He finished 2nd. The only person that beat him was the winner, Patrick Vellner. And he's typically been good at rope climb workouts, so this is a good opportunity for him, for someone that's been so close. We've talked about him multiple times. 1 spot away at Wadapalooza from earning an invite. 1 spot away at Strength and Depth from earning an invite last year, and hasn't quite been able to get over the hump. And even though he still has an outside shot, there's little goals that you can set in mind, like a strong performance here that could definitely build the confidence a little bit.
Ben Smith continues to lead along with Connor Duddy. The two of them are now into round number 5. That is Connor Duddy. Who finished 31st in the World Wide Open. And he's on the outside right now of that blue cut line. But once everything plays out, when athletes decline their invites to go team, and then that line moves, he is virtually assured of getting an invite or a qualification spot after that process plays out.
Yeah, we've seen some improvement from Connor over the last couple of years. He first showed up back in 2018. He was one of the top seeds going into the Atlantic Regional. I think we had one of those top 25 finishes worldwide in the Open. Ultimately, he wasn't able to kind of parlay that into some success at the regional level, but last year had a top 10 performance in Dubai, and ultimately that got him a backfill invite once everything shook out. Got to go to the games once, and then this year, has a little bit better open performance than he did the year before. Now he gets to go back for a 2nd year, and hopefully he has a better sophomore season at the games.
Right now, Connor Duddy is trying to keep pace with Ben Smith for the lead in this heat. 14-minute time cap. Only one man has finished, and that was Saxon Panchik in the prior heat, 13 minutes, 53.59 seconds. Ben Smith, meanwhile, has begun round number 6. 70 total scored repetitions in this event. 7 reps per round. 1 rep for every 10 double unders, and then 2 reps on the rope climbs. Ben Smith getting set to close out his double unders here in round number 6. Another man with a lot of games experience in this heat is Brandon Swan. He is on the right of your screen, now middle of your screen. was at the games last year on a team, also has some individual experience as well.
Yeah, he's been to the games 3 times as an individual, and it's funny because it feels like he's been around forever, you know. He was at the games in 2012, but he's only 28 years old. So, I guess it was long ago, but he was one of the young athletes that a lot of people were talking about coming out of Australia. I mean, he's been to regionals 7 times. He was at the games last year on a team. He's kind of had this kind of slow resurgence of his career. He was at the games for a few years, and then he kind of fell off a little bit. Had a couple of tough goes at regionals, a 10th and 11th, 21st, but then an 8th, get back in the top 10 in 2018. Last year decided to go team, qualified with Project X, and this year trying to maybe dip his toe back in the individual waters, and he's had some good performances in the open, and we might see him qualify eventually out of another sanctional.
And Brandon Swan out of CrossFit Torian in Ipswich, Queensland, and of course, all of our thoughts and prayers are with the people of Australia as they deal with the horrible fires that are affecting their country. I was talking to Jeremy Austin last night, part of our media crew, and asking him how he was doing, and he was saying, everybody knows somebody who's been affected by those fires in that country. So we just, all the best to the people of Australia as they look to deal with that tragedy. Brandon Swan is getting set to close out his 6th round. Ben Smith, meanwhile, the leader in the black shirt, is almost done with round number 7. And now he is, and he will go back to the rope to start his 8th round of double unders. Ben Smith in the lead, Connor Duddy trying to keep pace. Duddy is on his final rope climb in round at number 7, and he will join Ben Smith in round 8 of the double unders.
And both Ben Smith and Connor Duddy both well ahead of the pace right now, and even the pace that was set by Saxon Panchik. So at least through the first 3 quarters of this workout, we got a couple of athletes that are looking to finish and potentially set the time to beat.
We saw Saxon Panchik do this, break up the double unders earlier than you would think a lot of guys would break them up on a set of 50, but that pays off as he saved his energy for those rope climbs.
Yeah, and really the limiting factor here is the rope climbs, right? Once those start to break down, they don't really come back. So, taking a couple strategic breaks in something that's very quickly solvable, like a double under. If you miss a double under rep, it takes a couple of seconds to get back on it. If you fail a legless rope climb, I mean, we're talking, especially when you hit fatigue, 30 seconds, a minute, sometimes even more, because you've effectively redlined at that point. So smart pacing by an athlete who, is a veteran of.
Top 2 men on the screen, Ben Smith on the right, Connor Duddy on the left, and Ben Smith is now through round number 8, and he is on to his 9th round with 3 minutes, 45 seconds to go before we hit the 14-minute time cap. Connor Duddy is now done, and he will return for his 9th round of double unders. 13:43.59 seconds. That's the top time so far from Saxon Panchik, the only man to finish this event inside the 14-minute time cap.
Let's see Ben take that similar kind of strategic break. I mean, there are few athletes in the sport that kind of know their own body in terms of pacing as well as Ben Smith. When you want to talk experience, I mean, just the sheer amount of games workouts that he has had a chance to take part in over the years. Some people are lucky to make it 1 to 2 games, but Ben has competed in over 100 games workouts in his career, which is just insane.
You plan that out, and you said, I'm going to do 3 on, 1 off, and I'm just going to do all the events that Ben has done. I mean, it's going to take you several months to finish that.
Yeah. You could create 2 to 3 training cycles just with the games workouts that Ben Smith has done.
So Ben Smith is now on to round number 10. 2.5 minutes to go. Connor Duddy's going to get into round 10 as well. He has 1 rope climb remaining in round number 9. So we may see multiple men finish this event inside that 14-minute time cap. And Connor Duddy just picked up his rope and got onto his 9th round of double unders. Ben Smith is now through 66 of the 70 scored repetitions in this event, 7 reps per round. But 68 is when Ben Smith will be done and on to the rope climbs. He has 10 remaining. Connor Duddy's creeping up. Duddy with 20 left. Smith is done. And now 2 rope climbs remaining. He's going to get right to work.
And that was key. Those little breaks allowed him to basically waste no time in the transition, jump right up.
Ben Smith through 1. Here's his second. So Ben Smith looking to beat Saxon Panchik by more than a minute. And Ben Smith is not done yet. 12:39.57 seconds.
And it may be just a little bit thing. One of the things I loved about there in that last rope climb, just to be sure, on the last pull, he added a kip in just to make sure he was going to get that last rope climb with no doubt.
And Connor Duddy's going to finish, and he will have the second best time at 13:01.36.
Excellent performance by Connor Duddy. No shame in missing out and taking second to Ben Smith in a workout like this and still putting up a top time.
40 seconds to go before we hit the time cap. Drew Wayman is now your leader on the floor, and Wayman is also in round 10. Two rope climbs remain for Drew Wayman, and this is going to be big for him again. He is mathematically still alive for the invite. 63 points back of Luke Schaefer to start the day. Schaefer, the man who had received that invite. Wayman's going to jump back up. 5 seconds to go. And Wayman's not going to get there, but an outstanding score for Drew Wayman. He is 1 rep shy of finishing the event. Ben Smith, 12:39.5 seconds. He beats Saxon Panchik by more than a minute.
And that's just vintage Ben Smith, right? Tremendous pacing, excellent technique throughout. Just one of the things that has made him a legend and has allowed him to make it to now 12 CrossFit Games.
So Ben Smith was smart in his pacing to start, and it really paid off. Taking those breaks and those double unders was something that we didn't see in the early heats, but we saw in the later heats.
And I think that's just, part of the veteran mindset. He's one of those athletes that can kind of look around, see what's working for some of these athletes, and be able to apply it to his own strategy, craft it to his own talents.
2 men in Heat 5 end up finishing the event inside that 14-minute time cap. So 3 total now. Ben Smith does it the fastest, 12 minutes, 39.57 seconds. Connor Duddy will take second. And Drew Wayman flirted with finishing that event. He was actually making his final ascent on his last rope climb in round number 10, and he has 69 total reps to finish third in that heat. But Ben Smith has the time to beat, 12:39.57 seconds, and he is with Rory McKernan.
Hey, Sean, I'm just down here in the Reebok booth slanging some Good Dudes coffee. And the cool thing is, Reebok is announcing their new loyalty program. It's called Unlocked. Here on site, again, FOMO for those of you at home, but for those of you that are listening, that are here on site, free tumbler comes when you sign up. Free coffee, free hot chocolate all weekend long. What's more important than that, though, probably is those of you at home. You sign up for Unlocked. You go to the website on your screen right now. You can find that on Reebok.com. And what you're going to get is special offers, access to free returns, lots and lots of cool stuff. Basically, it's a loyalty program like you probably haven't seen before. So go check it out. And again, if you're on site, free Good Dudes coffee, man, all weekend long. Who doesn't like coffee? I know Sean and Tommy probably be drinking too much, but you guys come on over and enjoy at the Reebok booth.
Thank you, Ro. Obviously, Ben Smith was not there. We'll be talking to Ben hopefully a little bit later. We are going to take a quick break. We'll be back with the start of the women's competition for the day, and the 2020 Mayhem Classic is brought to you by Reebok, Fade into Greatness, by Defiance Fuel, Supercharge Your Performance, and by Rogue.